Cenk Uygur, and Kasparian. I forget whether we're dropping it or not. Let's just move on with our lives. Okay, it's a Friday show, and we've got a lot of programming for you guys. Later today, man, we're going nuts on Twitch. Common Room's back at 9 o'clock Eastern. So, you know, I'm not saying that you could have fun while having fun. I'm just saying. So look at this, Brie Estrig's back. How fun. Brett Ehrlich, Brie Estrig, Ellery Smith, and a cyborg. So that's at 9 o'clock Eastern tonight on twitch.tv/TYT, okay? And then next week, DNC coverage. Yes, believe it or not, next week is the DNC. Believe it or not, they do have speeches. We're gonna talk about one of them that's gonna last exactly 1 minute later in the program. But I'm co-hosting all week. John Idarola, Ben Dixon, Michael Schur, Anna Kasparian. We're doing live play-by-play. Don't miss a minute of it. It's gonna be super fun. And you know us, we're gonna keep it super real. All right, and speaking of keeping it super real, let's keep us healthy and sustainable. I love this one donor who said, so that you can keep me healthy and sustainable. I love that, thank you guys. TYT.com/go. Let's make that happen. All right, Cass. Oh, look at this, 56,000. Well, actually, 56,489 with half the month to go. Okay. Anyways, love you. Let's see if we can get to 57,000. Let's see it. Let's see if we can do it by next break. I don't know. We'll find out. Anyways, tons of great stories. Casper, go.
The Trump administration continues to spread all sorts of disinformation when it comes to mail-in voting. Now, of course, this is happening while the post office is being assaulted by the Postmaster General, who is a Trump ally and donor. Now, it's all really fascinating when you consider the fact that Donald Trump, who claims he doesn't trust in mail-in voting, has requested a mail-in ballot. Not only has he requested a mail-in ballot, so has Melania Trump. So the records from the Palm Beach County Supervisor of Elections website shows the ballots were mailed Wednesday to Trump's Mar-a-Lago club, which he made his permanent residence last year. So he will be voting by mail. And so I just want to remind you all of what Trump had to say about denying funding to the post office, the very real reason, very transparent reason for why he wanted to deny much needed funding to the post office. That was a recent statement that he made. Let's take a quick look at that.
They want $3.5 billion for the mail-in votes, okay, universal mail-in ballots, 3.5 trillion. They want $25 billion for the post office. Now they need that money in order to have the post office work so it can take all of these millions and millions of ballots. Now in the meantime, they aren't getting there. By the way, those are just two items. But if they don't get those two items, that means you can't have universal mail-in voting.
So I want to be clear about a couple of things. First of all, he says, oh no, there's a big difference between absentee voting and mail-in voting. There is no difference. It's the same process. So total lie. He's doing what he's telling you not to do, as always. And as always, says the quiet part out loud. He just told you he's doing it for political reasons. He does want to give the post office money so they could do more mail-in voting. But wait a minute. If you're a MAGA guy and you say, hey, listen, guys, I'm really worried about voter fraud. Well, then wouldn't you give the post office more money, not less money, so they could make sure that they could counteract this rampant voter fraud that you're worried about? I mean, how would it help if you're worried about voter fraud to give the post office less money so they have less in their arsenal to combat what you think is this unbelievable surge of voter fraud? So none of that makes any sense. What does make sense is what we're gonna explain a little bit later in this video for you guys, which is who wins if you count all the votes, and who wins if you just count in-person votes. And that is everything. But more on the details of this story.
So Trump was asked, well, why is it that you feel comfortable voting by mail in the state of Florida? And so I think his statement makes it pretty clear that he not only knows that mail-in voting and absentee voting is the same thing, but that he is pursuing this in an incredibly political and politicized way. He says, whether you call it vote by mail or absentee voting, in Florida, the election system is safe and secure tried and true. Florida's voting system has been cleaned up. We defeated Democrats' attempts at change. So in Florida, I encourage all to request a ballot and vote by mail. So while he is, in a lot of blue states questioning the validity of mail-in voting or the safety of mail-in voting, thus discouraging people to vote by mail. In Florida, where he has, a pretty significant portion of his supporters, he's saying, no, go out there and vote. Go out there and vote. It's totally safe. It's totally fine. Whether you call it absentee voting or mail-in voting doesn't really matter. So some more evidence that this is purely political and that he's trying to steal the election. Earlier this month, he told reporters, so Florida's got a great Republican governor. And it had a great Republican governor before that. And over a long period of time, they've been able to get the absentee ballots done extremely professionally. What does that even mean? Florida's different from other states. Again, just spreading this idea that Florida, their absentee or mail-in voting is different. There's no evidence that there's widespread voter fraud through mail-in ballots. We've gone over that. We've shown you the evidence over and over again. Trump then criticized, though, vote by mail efforts in Nevada and New York, states led by Democratic governors. And by the way, as we know, the post office is under complete assault by the Postmaster General. Louis DeJoy is his name. He is a huge Trump loyalist and donor. And what we're finding now is that a number of mail sorting machines, which would desperately be needed to sort through ballots for the general election, are now being taken out of the post office entirely. So 671 machines used to organize letters and other pieces of mail are slated for reduction in dozens of cities this year. The agency started removing machines in June, according to postal workers. The new procedures were described in a July memo and includes staff hours being cut. So sorting machines are being decommissioned. You have postal workers' hours getting cut. And then also, let's keep in mind that these sorting machines will basically do the job of 30 postal workers, right? With the sorting machines, you only need 3 postal workers. And so these are incredibly important machines when you're gonna expect this influx of mail because of this election, because of mail-in ballots. So the post office, in addition to all of this, is also removing drop boxes in various parts of the country. We've seen some evidence of this in Portland and Eugene, Oregon. So let's take a quick look at this tweet, which gives you, some evidence of it. There's a truck with all of these post office drop box loaded onto the back. Trump is trying to steal the election. He's gutting the USPS, United States Postal Service, to make it difficult for people to vote by mail. Here in Oregon, that's our only option. This demands attention. Now, a Postal Service spokesperson said declining mail volume means the Postal Service is removing duplicate boxes from areas that have multiple collection boxes. That is a complete lie. The USPS confirmed that 4 mailboxes were removed in Portland this week. Gee, I wonder why they focused on Portland. And one resident, let me just give you one more quote. One resident from Eugene, Oregon spoke to the Oregonian and said the following: outbound slots in neighborhood mailboxes are being locked shut. We are not just losing access to roadside mail drop boxes, but our convenient neighborhood drop slots. This applies to neighborhoods without individual mailboxes. So we are unable to send outbound mail from our area without finding a roadside mailbox or risking a trip to the post office.
Okay, so like I told you, we're going to explain why they're doing all this in a second. First, some quick comments. If you said, what is the one state in this country that has a history of having deep problems with their voting system, it would be Florida. It's the most obvious thing in the world. We had a giant election and a Supreme Court decision over how terrible the voting system was in Florida. So Trump, as always, turning the truth on its head and pretending, oh, that's the one state we got locked up. Yeah, that's the one state that's so corrupt that you're not worried about how they're gonna count the votes. But where they're not corrupt, you're deeply worried. So number 2, the sorting machines. Think about this, guys. And the unions have said this and the postal workers have said this. They're like, look, if you think the sorting machines are not needed because we have less volume, don't turn them on, unplug them. They're taking them away and even dismantling them. Why would you do that? What if volume rises again? Put aside the election. What if coronavirus is over and volume of mail rises again? Why did you disassemble the voting machines? The sorting machines at the post office? Because they want it to take a lot longer to count the mail-in votes. Again, just a second, I'm going to show you why. But Louis DeJoy, why is he even here? The guy gave over $2 million to Trump and the Republican Party. He has $30 to $75 million in USPS competitors and contractors. So even if you put aside the voting, this guy's dismantling the post office so he can get richer. Look, are there any reporters left in the country? I understand that you're reporting these things, but that's obvious bribery. Call it what it is. Why does Louis DeJoy have that job as the head of the post office? Because of bribery. Every actual human being knows that, but the reporters will not call it that. Oh, he just happened to be there. I don't know. What a lucky break.
So my issue with this, it actually goes beyond reporters, because there has been some pretty good reporting on this issue, but reporters aren't supposed to, do something as lawmakers are, right? So, I mean, you have both the House and the Senate on vacay right now, while Donald Trump is unilaterally destroying our democratic process. Why are you guys on vacation? What are you doing? What are they doing on recess? We're going to talk about that in more detail later, but reporters are meant to report on these stories. And, at least we know the details of the corruption that's taking place right now. And at least there are multiple sources that are reporting on it. Whereas both Democrats and Republicans in Congress are like, see you later. No stimulus bill for you. No economic relief for Americans. The post office is under assault. I don't know. We can't come to any agreement. So we're just going to go vacation now. We're going to go on recess. It's pathetic.
By the way, they could look to impeach DeJoy if they want. And you say, oh, well, that sounds extreme. No, putting in a guy who bribed you for $2 million so he could dismantle the post office right before the election, that's extreme. And you should fight back. They're literally taking the mailboxes off the street, saying there's no way we're going to let you mail in these votes. So Brett, what I'm going to show you guys first is the graphics of if everyone votes and the polling is what it currently is. This is why every Democrat in the country wants every vote counted, and not a single Republican does. Every Republican is saying, no, don't count all the votes. Whatever you do, don't count all the votes. Don't count the mail-in ones. Because if you count all the votes, this is how the Electoral College would wind up if things held steady. Let's show it. So you see, oh, look at that. Biden wins easily. 352 to 186. It's a blowout. It's a landslide. But if only in-person voting counts today, according to the polling, Trump wins 306 to 232 because a much higher percentage of Biden's voters are mailing in their ballots. So what Trump and the Republican Party is doing is saying, hey, if we can delay the mail-in votes being counted long enough, we can declare victory on the in-person voting and just wrap up the election. And we have a blueprint for this. It's 2000, when Fox News called the election for George Bush and said, oh, he's got a 537 vote lead. It's over. Now, reality is they counted later, and it turns out Gore had won the state of Florida. But it was too late because they'd already stolen the election. So they're gonna try to do it again. And with this disparity in in-person voting results versus all voting results, and understand that first number we showed you, where Biden wins in a landslide, is not just the mail-in portion. That's all of it, including in-person and mail-in. Okay, all of it, and Biden landslides it. But if you only take the in-person, then Trump wins, and that's why they want to make sure you cannot cast your mail-in ballot. And if you do, they're not going to count it until much later and declare Trump the winner. So everything is riding on this, and the Republicans know it too. Everybody knows who's going to win if you count all the votes. The rest is just trying to figure out if the Republicans can cheat enough to change that result.
Yeah, I mean, they can't win on ideas. They can't win on reflecting on the Trump administration so far and highlighting what he's done well. He hasn't done anything well. He's failed in every single way, shape, and form you can imagine. And at the same time, all of these Republican lawmakers have licked his boots throughout the entire process. So they know that they need to rely on literally rigging this election in their favor. And that's what's happening right now. And the most depressing part is that we're supposed to have a system of checks and balances. The Supreme Court, if this kind of situation makes its way to the Supreme Court, I mean, it's now packed with conservative judges. So we don't know how that's going to end up. Congress is obviously feckless and useless. They're on vacation right now. I mean, it's just, and I think it's part of the reason why Republican lawmakers have just kind of given up on any type of stimulus bill to offer economic relief for Americans. I mean, why would they worry about that if they can just ride on Trump's election rigging coattails? It's absolutely disgusting. Well, let's talk about how this is going to affect specific states.
Some of these states are key battleground states. We've heard from voters and workers in Wisconsin, in Michigan, Pennsylvania. And if those states sound familiar, it's because they are battleground states. And voters there actually told us, we're especially worried because we know that our state matters. And it makes us wonder, are we being targeted because our state matters?
Swing states are absolutely being targeted by the Trump administration through the way they are dismantling the Postal Service. And what we've learned recently is that the Postal Service has warned as many as 46 states that they will experience voter suppression due to votes that will be delayed if they're casted through mail-in voting, right? They're gonna be delayed because they don't have the capacity, they don't have the ability to process all of these ballots in time. Now, this is a warning that was actually sent to 46 states prior to a Trump loyalist and donor, Louis DeJoy, serving as the Postmaster General. He is now further dismantling the post office, making it even weaker so it has no capability to do what it's supposed to do in processing all of these mail-in ballots. So the US Postal Service recently sent detailed letters to 46 states and DC warning that it cannot guarantee all ballots cast by mail for the November election will arrive in time to be counted. Even if people follow all of their state's election rules, meaning you've turned in your ballot in time, you've done everything you're supposed to do, the pace of Postal Service delivery may disqualify their votes. Now, keep in mind that mail voting machines have been dismantled through the Postal Service. We've learned of drop boxes that have been picked up in places like Eugene and Portland, Oregon. We know that postal workers' hours have been cut. So they didn't have the capacity to deal with the influx of mail before. And now with the actions of the Trump administration and the new Postmaster General, it's abundantly clear that they're in a far worse situation. The ballot warnings issued at the end of July from Thomas Marshall, General Counsel for the Executive Vice President of the Postal Service, were planned before the appointment of Louis DeJoy, a former logistics executive and ally of Trump's, as Postmaster General in early summer. And by the way, DeJoy has actually made this problem a lot worse, but what you need to think about is the financial investments he has. He literally has a financial interest, an incentive to see the post office fail because he's invested in competitors to the post office. Now, some states anticipate 10 times the volume, the normal volume of election mail. 6 states and DC received warnings that ballots could be delayed for a narrow set of voters. But the Postal Service gave 40 others, including the key battleground states of Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Florida, more serious warnings that their long-standing deadlines for requesting, returning, or counting ballots were incongruous with the mail service, and that voters who send ballots in close to the deadlines may become disenfranchised. So if they don't have the time to process all this mail, even if you've turned in the mail on time, they might not be able to process that mail in time to meet the state laws, right? So some states are actually working with their state Supreme Courts to change the laws in order to make room for these mail-in ballots, even if the post office isn't able to process them in time. In some cases, states have already extended the amount of time that ballots can be counted. In Pennsylvania, they're trying to extend it past 3 days to ensure that even if it's postmarked 3 days after the actual election date, those ballots will still be counted. But all these states are scrambling right now. And it's pathetic that we're not getting any type of leadership from Congress in combating what the Trump administration is trying to do here to rig the election.
Okay, so if you're a schmuck who believes in Donald Trump, then let me just ask you, based on your own logic, you say, all right, well, on this issue, I believe in Trump because I'm worried about all this fraud. I know that there aren't actually almost no cases of fraud, but Trump tells me there is, and I believe him. I'm super concerned about it, okay? All right, well then wouldn't you spend more money in the post office to make sure that they can catch the people doing the fraud? If you say, no, I believe in Trump, I'm worried that these states are not gonna be able to get the ballots in time, and I'm concerned, I want all the votes counted because I know Trump's gonna win. Trump's so good, he's gonna win in a landslide. I want every vote counted because it's gonna show how great and popular he is and we are. And I'm concerned Pennsylvania and other states are not gonna be able to count enough. Wouldn't you then give more money rather than less money to the post office so they can count those votes? Why would you be in favor of taking away the drop boxes, dismantling the sorting machines to be able to process the mail-in ballots, and cutting staff? Wouldn't you be in favor of the exact opposite? Hey, let's make sure the post office is set so they catch all the people doing fraud, so they make sure that these ballots are in time because we're gonna win. No. See, even you know that if we count all the votes, Trump's gonna lose. He's gonna get humiliated. That is why they're desperate to not count the mail-in votes. That's why they're trying to eviscerate the post office. And even if they're gonna count the mail-in votes, they want it to be as late as possible so they can declare victory. Let me show you the graphic again. If all the votes are counted, according to the polling right now, Joe Biden would win a landslide electoral victory, 352 to 186. It'd be a crushing win. But if only the in-person voting counted, according to the polling today, Trump would win 306, 232. That's why he wants to get rid of millions and millions and millions of people voting through mail-in ballots, so he can declare a fake victory and try to stay in office illegally. So that's the only reason to do it. Now, one more thing. Trump and the Republicans are like, oh, senior citizens, we care so much about you. And senior citizens on average voted for him over Hillary Clinton in 2016. And oh, the senior citizens in Florida, we care so much about you. And oh my God, we wanted to protect you from the death panels and Obamacare and all that. Now, Trump just said it, he said, I don't care. Go make them vote in person. Oh, so you don't care about their health or their well-being. And you're gonna try to make sure they can't do mail-in voting and drive them to vote in person, even though you know it endangers their lives. And by the way, as Anna pointed out earlier in the show, Trump's not doing that. He's doing mail-in voting. The hypocrisy is unbelievable and totally sickening. And if you fall for it, you're a dupe.
When we come back from the break, we'll switch gears just a little bit and give you guys an update on coronavirus, including how Americans feel about taking a potential vaccine in response to this virus. Come right back.
We need to talk about a relatively new show called the Republic, or UNFTR. As a Young Turks fan, you already know that the government, the media, and corporations are constantly peddling lies that serve the interests of the rich and powerful. But now there's a podcast dedicated to unraveling those lies, debunking the conventional wisdom. In each episode of the Republic, or UNFTR, the host delves into a different historical episode or topic that's generally misunderstood or purposely obfuscated by the so-called powers that be, featuring in-depth research, razor-sharp commentary, and just the right amount of vulgarity. The UNFTR podcast takes a sledgehammer to what you thought you knew about some of the nation's most sacred historical cows. But don't just take my word for it. The New York Times described UNFTR as consistently compelling and educational, aiming to challenge conventional wisdom and upend the historical narratives that were taught in school. For as the great philosopher Yoda once put it, you must unlearn what you have learned. And that's true whether you're in Jedi training or you're uprooting and exposing all the propaganda and disinformation you've been fed over the course of your lifetime. So search for UNFDR in your podcast app today and get ready to get informed, angered, and entertained all at the same time.
Back.
All right, back on the Young Turks. First of all, don't say we don't deliver for you. We got another fun giveaway. Zoom e-scooter saved tons of money on parking gas, and it's environment friendly. So the way that you could win it, flat out win it, is go to tyt.com/greensummer. Got to sign up for an aspiration account or refer a friend, but they'll explain it all to you at tyt.com/greensummer. So God bless. Go forward on that. We'll probably have a winner soon, so make sure you're participating. Now let me read some of your comments. Gerald in the members section writes in, I'm tired of hearing about the outrage regarding Trump's attack on the post office when no one seems to be able to offer any idea of what to do about it. We can rage about it while he gets away with it unless there's some clear direction on how to fight him. Well, Gerald, therein lies the problem, which is that the Democrats are the party that represent us. And they suck at fighting, unless they're fighting progressives and they're lions. But and then they'll smear you, they'll do homophobic attacks, they'll do every kind of attack, right? But if it's a Republican, they're like, I don't know what to do about it. Well, why don't you get tough? Why don't you threaten to impeach the postmaster general? Why don't you talk about how you hold hearings right now? You have the House, instead of going on vacation, hold hearings about who's going to get arrested if there's any cheating regarding mail-in voting. Okay, here are the laws, and we're going to follow the laws. And the minute anyone steps outside of the laws, right after the election, we're going to arrest them, and they're going to spend 20 years in prison. Okay, I mean, you have 1,000 choices on how to fight back if you have the Democratic Party. The problem is the Democratic Party is led by Chuck Schumer, who's running ads now online. Who's like, please donate to us. And Nancy Pelosi, who's busy eating $24,000 worth of ice cream. So
also can't really speak. Let's keep it real.
Get to work. Get to work. The Republicans had 9 insane, useless hearings on Benghazi. The Democrats haven't had a single hearing on this. You have the House. They're the worst. Anyway. God damn, replace them all with just Democrats. So not just because of progressives policies, but also so you have people willing to fight back for you. All right, now I'm gonna go to YouTube super chat. Dr. Zippy McScoots writes in, that's a funny name. I live in South Dakota, can't get tested for COVID-19 without a doctor's referral. Can't get a doctor's referral if they're not sure you have it or had it. Still to this day, we can't get the testing. Why? It's actually the same mindset for Trump. If I don't count your coronavirus, it'll be like it didn't exist. If I don't count your votes, it'll be like it didn't exist. So that's what they mean by alternative reality. But it comes at the cost of your life and the life of this democracy. And then finally, last couple ones here. The progressive linguist says, why the F is there a limit on how long votes can be counted? Shouldn't that just be when all the legally cast votes have been counted? Yes, except as we saw in the year 2000, the Supreme Court stepped in and said, no, we don't want you to count Florida. And they stopped a recount of Florida and said, you will not count those votes. We'll declare George Bush the winner without making sure that it was him. They just cheated, they just stole it. Absolutely stole it. And the rest of the media was like, oh, okay, that's fine. Bush is president, now it's over. Anyway, and last thing here, Artificial Morphism says, please mention that many states allow you to drop off your ballot at their courthouses, avoiding the USPS. Not everyone knows this. It's true, and that's a heavy burden to put on people. But yes, if you want to be absolutely sure, that's one way to do it. All right, make sure that everybody's voting and have their votes counted. All right, Anna, what's next?
The future of this country seems to really rely on the development of a coronavirus vaccine. The economy is suffering, and when I say economy, I mostly mean most working Americans have had to bear the brunt of the mismanagement of this virus. And so what we keep hearing about is, as soon as there's a vaccine, there might be some relief. Well, Gallup surveyed Americans to see whether they would be willing to even get vaccinated in response to coronavirus, and the results are actually pretty devastating. So many Americans, they report, appear reluctant to be vaccinated, even if a vaccine were FDA approved and available to them at no cost. Asked if they would get such a COVID-19 vaccine, 65% said that they would, but 35% would not. 35% of respondents in this nationally representative sample said, no, I wouldn't get vaccinated. I mean, I guess I'm not too surprised by it, but go ahead, Cenk.
Yeah, and I on this one, I have to confess, I don't care. So let me be clear, okay? Before we have the vaccine, I care deeply that everybody wears masks because otherwise you're gonna spread it to other people. After we get the vaccine and I get vaccinated and my family and friends and loved ones get vaccinated, I'm still gonna tell you that you should get vaccinated and you should be careful because I care about your life. But if you say, Cenk, I think you're biased and I know that Fauci and Tom Hanks are working to put in chips into me and I'm not gonna take the vaccine and I'm gonna sort of rub coronavirus all over my face. I'm vaccinated, brother. You do you, boo. Okay, I'm telling you not to jump off the cliff. But if you're gonna live rent-free inside my head and own me by jumping off a cliff to prove that gravity doesn't work, have at it, Hoss. So once we have the vaccine and we're all vaccinated, you can be crazy to your heart's content. Freedom, freedom, brothers and sisters. Go get them, okay? Rub it all in your ears and stuff, a shampoo with it, the coronavirus. Don't get vaccinated. I can't help you if you're dumb, and that's the risk you're gonna have to take.
I'm gonna put myself out on the line here because I'm clearly not a scientist and this might sound incredibly stupid. So I apologize if I do. But if most people don't get that vaccination and you still have this virus active, in the community and it's spreading, wouldn't it continue to mutate? And then wouldn't that potentially risk, people who have been vaccinated with like a new form of this virus? You get what I'm saying? I don't know if it works that way. Maybe I'm wrong. I take it back. Let me just move on and give you facts, okay? But I'm just floating that. If you're a scientist and you actually know what you're talking about, please write in, let us know what you think, because I'm sure, because remember, we essentially got rid of polio, right, through this polio vaccine. And then this like anti-vaxxer movement started. And all of a sudden we started to see a reemergence of polio. And so I'm curious like how it would impact like the broader community if this like conspiratorial anti-vaxxer thing it perpetuates, right? But one other thing I also want to note is, look, under the Trump administration, I mean, if someone asked me, hey, there's now an FDA approved vaccine available for coronavirus under the Trump administration, I would be skeptical too, right? Because we know that Trump is really putting everything, all his eggs in that vaccine basket. And we know that in Russia, for instance, they claim to have developed some sort of vaccine, but they did so without doing the proper testing. So these are things that would make me a little skeptical. Just want to be absolutely fair in what I'm, commenting on here. Go ahead, Cenk.
On that note, Anna, so look, I'm not going to take any old vaccine if it's not thoroughly tested and approved. Would I take the Russian vaccine? No way. Putin's like, no, I know it's safe because I gave it to my daughter. Really? Then why didn't you take it? Well, she already had coronavirus and she had a temperature of 104, so I gave it to her. That's not how vaccines work. You have to take it before you get sick. So no, I'm not taking that clown show of a vaccine that they came up with in Russia, where Putin's like, yes, I know how to do it. Give me some pudding and I will throw in some kielbasa or whatever we make vaccine. No, I'm not taking that. And if Trump says, oh, don't trust me, I got a Trump incorporated vaccine that me and Sean Hannity and Rudy Giuliani put together. No, I'm not taking that either. But if the FDA approves it and the real scientists say, yes, this is the right vaccine, it's been thoroughly tested and peer reviewed, then yes, all the scientists in the world are not lying.
So a few more details from this survey, because I think it is interesting to see how the people being surveyed responded based on their demographics or their political ideology. So 81% of Democrats are willing to be vaccinated today if a free FDA-approved vaccine were available. That compares with just 59% of independents and just under half of Republicans, 47%. Now, so a few of our viewers have written in via Twitter, and they said that my interpretation of the virus mutating seems correct. So, I'm worried about the impact that it's going to have on a broader population of people if a third of individuals refuse to take the vaccine. Let me give you more details, though. 76% of adults between the ages of 18 to 29 are willing to get the COVID-19 vaccine, as are 70% of senior citizens, so some pretty good numbers there. Willingness to be vaccinated is lower among the middle-aged groups, 64% among 30 to 49-year-olds, and 59% among those 50 to 64 year. Wait, 30 to 49 is considered middle age? Like, when did that happen?
I like how you got distracted by that. All right, by the way, that 50 to 65 group is the most hardcore Trump voting bloc. It's one of the few demographics that are still in Trump's camp. He's now lost senior citizens, partly because maybe his reaction to coronavirus, where he's like, I don't care, you just go out and die for all I care. And he's lost the young, of course, right? So he's just got that little block, and it's the same knuckleheads who are like, oh, I don't need no stinking vaccine. But look, I don't care if you're progressive and or a Democrat or anything, and you say, no, I don't believe all the world's scientists. I think that they're gonna put chips in me, and Tom Hanks has got a pizza chain that's a problem or something. Whatever your theories are, I don't care. Now, look, a lot of you make good points. Anna made a good point. I don't, and especially in situations like polio, once you've largely gotten rid of the disease, you don't even need the vaccinations. And again, we're not scientists, don't quote us on it. But once it rages again, then you need everybody taking the vaccine, and God forbid if they haven't taken the vaccine, then they're more likely to catch it. Mike, one of our members, makes a good point. TYT.com/join to become a member and have your comments read here. Mike says, Cenk, don't you care about immunocompromised people who can't be vaccinated? They rely on everyone being vaccinated to stay protected. Mike, it's a great point. So yes, I'm exaggerating. Of course, I actually want people to get vaccinated. But I'll go just wrap up with this, back to the gravity example. So if you say, hey, listen, I'm gonna jump off this cliff and I'm gonna take you with me, I'm gonna fight you as hard as I can. If you say I'm gonna jump off this cliff and take your mom and dad with me, I'm gonna make sure you're not jumping off that cliff. But if at the end you say, look, I'm gonna jump off the cliff and it might or might not affect you, probably won't, but I'm just gung-ho on owning the libs and showing that gravity doesn't work, I'm saying, look, I'm trying not to get you jump off the cliff. I'm trying, but if at the end you jump, I gotta say, c'est la vie. That's all I'm saying, and that's just the reality of it. #freedom.
All right, well, let's take a break, and when we come back, we will show you and share with you yet another story demonstrating how the DNC does not respect progressives at all. We'll be right back.
At TYT, we frequently talk about all the ways that big tech companies are taking control of our online lives, constantly monitoring us and storing and selling our data. But that doesn't mean we have to let them. It's possible to stay anonymous online and hide your data from the prying eyes of big tech. And one of the best ways is with ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN hides your IP address, making your active ID more difficult to trace and sell to advertisers. ExpressVPN also encrypts 100% of your network data to protect you from eavesdroppers and cyber criminals. And it's also easy to install. A single mouse click protects all your devices. But listen, guys, this is important. ExpressVPN is rated #1 by CNET and Wired magazine. So take back control of your life online and secure your data with a top VPN solution available, ExpressVPN. And if you go to expressvpn.com/TYT, you can get 3 extra months for free with this exclusive link just for TYT fans. That's expressvpn.com/TYT. Check it out today.
Turks. Cenk and Anna with you guys. Comments as usual. Members first. Tina says, I will not take any corona vaccine approved during this administration, period. I hear you, Tina. That's a fair point. TYT.com/join. And if Trump says, no, don't worry, but the guy in charge who gave me $2 million, he should be fine. No, not buying it. Wingway on YouTube Super Chat says, it's a dream of mine to see what an actual divided country would look like. Progressives to the west and everyone else to the east. Now, we can't do it. It's a bad idea. But yes, I was recently interviewing someone in the conversation about if the Western Seaboard seceded, California, Oregon, and Washington, that country would be heavenly. It would be very wealthy, very progressive, and would get to implement a lot of great policies. But we can't leave everybody else to die with those Republicans. Anyway, speaking of which, Klaus M54 says on Super Chat, Cenk, indifference to people choosing not to get vaccinated is problematic. We need a high rate of vaccination to protect individuals who can't get vaccinated and eradicate the disease in total. Klaus, I totally agree with you. That's the right attitude. It's just how many times can I tell a right winger that I'm trying to save his life? And if he then still, does the wrong thing, what am I gonna do? Okay, I'm trying to educate them. That's part of why we do the show. But if they want to die to own me, to own the libs, okay, I tried to warn you. All right, last thing real quick. Twitch viewers are awesome. Bumblebee Tuna gifted a sub to Nima74 because you guys are great to one another. Rankai resub for the third month. Polo PSU 1975 sub with Prime. Comcase donated 100 bits and he's on the hype train. Ozil 84 gifted to Jose. This is so awesome. You guys sticking up for each other. Kidyania resub for the second month. Thank you guys. Twitch.tv/TYT. We're also on there live as well. And if you have a subscription, you can catch the shows whenever you want on Twitch as well. All right, Anna, what's next?
All right, I just wanted to answer Effecto's question real quick because he wanted to know, or she wanted to know, about the methodology in the study that we just talked about. And to be quite honest, based on the questions that I saw, they were very simple, and they did not ask about whether or not the respondents had tested for antibodies. So I'm sure that they controlled for some of the factors that you mentioned, but I think you raise a lot of interesting points about whether these people had taken the antibodies test, because if you've taken the test and you have the antibodies, you might feel less inclined to take the vaccine. All right, just wanted to make sure I didn't ignore your question. Let's move on. In a show of solidarity with the progressive arm of the Democratic Party, the DNC has given Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez ample time to speak during the Democratic convention. The ample time that I'm speaking of is a total of 60 seconds. So yes, I'm being sarcastic. They have actually decided to give Republicans more time to speak during the convention. Now, AOC didn't criticize the party directly, but tweeted a poem by Dr. Benjamin E. Mays in response. So I want to give you that tweet. I only have a minute, 60 seconds in it, forced upon me. I did not choose it, but I know that I must use it. Give account if I abuse it, suffer if I lose it. Only a tiny little minute, but eternity is in it. So, and by the way, she noted that that was recited by Elijah Cummings. So she is planning on speaking, even though they are only allowing her to do a pre-recorded speech that is 60 seconds long. Now, other progressive speakers include Senator Bernie Sanders. I hope that he gets an opportunity to speak a little longer than that. Elizabeth Warren will also give a speech during the convention. But one thing that really did stand out was that John Kasich seems to be given a significant amount of time. I don't know. I mean, the DNC is not answering questions about how much time is slated for each individual speaker. But we do know that Kasich has not been limited to 60 seconds. And so he tweeted about this saying, I will be speaking at the DNC convention because I believe that America needs to go in a different direction. I've searched my conscience, and I believe the best way forward is for change, to bring unity where there has been division and to bring about a healing in America. But he's not the only Republican who'll be speaking. Mike Bloomberg, who, yes, is a Republican. Okay, let's keep it 100. He might have changed his party affiliation for political purposes, but he is a Republican. Mike Bloomberg jumped into the Democratic presidential primary long after much of the field, arguing that he did so to stop the rise of more liberal candidates like Senators Bernie Sanders of Vermont and Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts. So that's who Bloomberg is, and he will be speaking. Why is he going to speak at the convention? Well, it might have something to do with this, and you'll love this, Cenk. Bloomberg to date has been one of the biggest Democratic donors of the cycle, transferring $18 million to the Democratic National Committee via his presidential committee in March, along with millions in donations to other Democratic organizations. So certainly money talks.
Yeah, first of all, I have more good news, Anna. You might not have heard this, but they just announced Rashida Tlaib is also going to be speaking. She's going to be getting 5 seconds. Ilhan Omar is going to be getting 3 seconds. And I hear they're even letting David Sirota speak. He's just got to do it in 60 nanoseconds. Yeah, right. Okay, and I'm prepared to give my DNC speech now. Vote against Trump. I did it. I can't believe I squeezed it in half a second. So guys, this is not a speech by AOC. And there's something just as important as the fact that it's comically short. It's pre-recorded and pre-approved. They don't want her going out there and making any argument that they didn't pre-approve. John Kasich, a Republican, can make any argument he wants. Have at it, Hoss, talk for as long as you want. Bloomberg, oh my God, you bought your way in. You sure you don't want to be vice president? Anyway, speak as long as you like, right? But a progressive, 60 seconds and I want to see that script. And so it is a joke. If you've ever been at a convention or watched a convention, they have ads between the speeches. And those ads are like, bios of Biden and biopic of Kamala Harris and so many others. They're way longer than 60 seconds. So this is a tiny short ad for progressives, kind of in the middle of the convention, and shorter than many of the other ads. And I gotta say, man, AOC nailed it with that poem. That poem sounds like it was written for this instance. So perfect response.
Yeah, I do love it. Look, I think that AOC is a huge threat to the corporate Democrats. And to be quite honest with you guys, I think that Biden doesn't represent the future of the party. I think that Biden represents the end of a terrible era for the party. And so giving someone like AOC, who's an effective communicator, a significant opportunity to share her ideas during this convention when most of the country is going to be paying attention to what that message is threatening to these corporate Democrats. But we know they're scared. I don't blame them. I'd be scared too if I had antiquated ideas about how this country should be run. But they should know that they can't put a muzzle on people who are right. They can't try to silence ideas, and they can try to run away as much as they can. But in the end, we're going to win. And they hate it, but sorry. So let's move on. Let's talk about Ed Markey, because he's a perfect example of a politician who might be of age, but he has the right policy ideas. So incumbent Democratic Senator Ed Markey from Massachusetts is facing a primary challenger, and that primary challenger is Joe Kennedy. And there are actually accusations that Kennedy's father, former Congressman Joseph Kennedy, is funding a PAC that's airing all sorts of negative ads against Markey. So how has Markey responded? Has he done like the typical pathetic, weak corporate Democrat move? Or did he come out punching? Well, I don't know. Let's take a look at his ad and you can judge for yourselves.
There's an invisible contract we all signed at birth, a promise. Every hour we work means longer days of freedom and security. It paved the road in your neighborhoods and it added up to a country. But when crisis hit, Trump's government abandoned America. We asked what we could do for our country. They looked for what they could take. But there's a truth written in every history book. If you break the sacred contract, the people make a revolution. All across America, the essential people are demanding a new deal. Well, they call me the deal maker.
Ed Markey's desk was thrown out in the hall by the State House bosses. Markey's bill is now the law.
I'm Ed Markey. I'm running for Congress because I want to fight for the principles that I believe in. The bosses may tell me where to sit. No one tells me where to stand.
My father was a union leader. He taught me, don't beg for your rights, organize and take them. So in January, I was the first senator to write to Trump. I warned him we needed a plan. I talked to the Democrats and the Republicans. I told them we've got to save the fishermen. A month later, we had $300 million for our fishing industry. Trump wanted to cheap out, but I helped negotiate $600 a week for any American struggling to find their next gig. They thought the son of a milkman couldn't learn the rules. I made new ones. I don't need to get on the phone and talk to lobbyists to know what working people think. I get on the streets and I listen.
I've got a question for 1 million people. Do you want to freeze the arms race?
I put the deal on the table, but the people make it impossible to refuse. With 500 laws on the books, you think I'm going to stop now? They wish.
Green New Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Senator Ed Markey introduced their Green New Deal
to stop climate change and create millions of good jobs in the process.
We got to absolutely crush Donald Trump in November. But if we're going to end this era of chaos, that won't be enough. We got to make sure President Biden signs the Green New Deal. We can't wait.
We've got to have folks in the United States Senate who are willing to stand up for working people. That's who Ed Markey is. I need Ed Markey in the United States Senate.
We asked what we could do for our country. We went out. We did it. With all due respect, it's time to start asking what your country can do for you.
That's all I have to say. Cenk, go ahead.
Yeah, so he's using the famous JFK line, and of course he's running as Joseph Kennedy III. So Joe Kennedy's primarying an incumbent sitting senator on the Democratic side, Ed Markey. Why? Well, Markey's more progressive than him. So does Joe Kennedy think that Massachusetts needs a more conservative senator? What a weird argument to make. A senator who's more in favor of the status quo, that's Joe Kennedy. Why would Massachusetts need a senator more in favor of the status quo? And basically, Joe Kennedy's point is, I will take more money from corporations and I will do what they say. And Chuck Schumer loves that. And the Democratic leadership loves that. And so elect me, I'll take more corporate money. And by the way, my last name is Kennedy. It's impossible for me to care less what your last name is. Who cares? Camelot. Every reporter, oh, it's Camelot. Is Ivanka Trump Camelot? Is Donald Trump Jr. Camelot? I don't give a damn about Camelot. I don't know if you know this. This is in England. This is America where we believe in democracy. Vote for Ed Markey, the actual progressive. Amazing post game coming up next. Hit the join button below if you want to watch it. Go.
Thanks for listening to the full episode of the Young Turks. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, Cenk Uygur, and I'll see you soon.